You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie. He's over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, might as well start with something we're going to replay for people who didn't hear it earlier this morning. David Hertel had Marc Tanguay. He's the interim leader of the Provincial Liberal Party on. Want to know what your take from that was? I'm assuming you've heard it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And one of the reasons I wanted to mention it is in case any of our listeners haven't had a chance to check it out. If you have a chance on this show or on the website, please do. It isn't very often that you have a former Liberal cabinet minister interviewing a sitting, Liberal interim leader of a party. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the sausage monger has to make, is being confronted by the guy who knows how to make sausages. It's a great interview, but what I found intriguing about it, there were two things that struck me. One, and David kept pressing him on any number of issues. I didn't hear anything breathtakingly new from the Liberal Party, which I guess to a certain extent is news itself. Pretty much the same cassettes we've been hearing, from my God, since the days of Dominique Anglade. But all that said, I'm also concerned. I haven't seen it. I may be wrong, but if the interim head of the Liberal Party is spending time giving really like chunks of time to CJAD, an Anglo station, they must be in bigger trouble than I thought. Because remember, we were always sort of like being taken for granted. We were a shoo-in. Our votes were guaranteed, and all of a sudden, to give in terms of minutes, a big chunk of time like that suggests they realize they've got to do something, because those stakes are high, and it's not impossible that these guys will suffer the same fate of the PQ. Like, they'll have a very famous brand and absolutely nothing to back it up.
It's interesting you mentioned that. Typically, you would think you would hear from the opposition on a fairly regular basis anytime there's government policy that they would want to speak up against. It was never the case with the Liberals. It's the strangest thing. We'd hear from Paul St. Pierre Plamondon, you'd hear from Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, and it was basically, radio silence coming from the Liberals unless we went out of our way to ask for someone to come on. So the fact, I guess, first of all, Desiree McGraw, she was on the other day with David, and now Marc Tanguay. Maybe you're right. Maybe that does signal something.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is they come on, and I've always said, don't hold a press conference if you have nothing to say. Mm-hmm. They're still playing defense. It's not almost. They are. They're still playing defense. And it's like, I don't want to whip this dead horse any further, but they better smarten up, get a leader sooner rather than later, and really figure out who you want to be when you grow up. It's like, we are the only Federalist Party. Well, that's really swell. But you have to explain to everybody who seems to be, providing their support in Quebec to either separatist or so-called nationalist parties, why in God's name would anyone want to turn around and vote for you? What's the advantage for you? And due respect to David, I say it's a great interview, but I didn't hear a big motherload of stuff that is new from Mr. Tanguay.
Yeah, agreed. And by the way, we will be playing back a portion of that interview just after the 5:30 news, and then get David Hertel to come on and actually now post that interview. Kind of give us his reaction, because you're right, Jim. Here's one former cabinet minister talking to a colleague, and he didn't take it easy on him, and I was quite impressed by that.
I was just going to add, by comparison, we did have a lot of access to Dominique Anglade, but it was forever frustrating trying to get her to kind of get riled up about anything, to have any real passion. And then you started to really understand how this party was going off the rails. And now,
well, I think what we discovered with Madame Anglade as well, and you raise a very, very germane point, Natasha, which is that lack of passion. We were expecting to hit a reset button. We're expecting, after all of the issues that the party had gone through, that we would finally see some kind of renaissance. And what we got was more of the same. But I will respectfully disagree. I think when caucus members got up in Madame Anglade's face, she could be very passionate indeed. Which led to a lot of people, a lot of monarchs and Ben-Maires, former cabinet ministers and former MNAs, turning around and not behind the cloak of anonymity, but out loud with their name under the quote, saying, "Listen, this isn't working, and some steps are going to have to be taken." And boom, I said she'd be out by Christmas. Turns out she left in November.
Oh, there is that. All right, let's move along. And first of all, I'm not familiar with the story you wrote. Quebec to use walk-in customers as French tutors. What's this about?
Oh, come on now. You didn't hear about that? This
No.
is great. The fact of the matter is the Chambre de commerce de Montreal and the Quebec Immigration Department announced the revival of the imaginatively named learning French program called J'apprends le français. And what they do is they take university students and they match them up with businesses, and they work as stagiaires in these businesses. It can be any number of businesses, but the idea is you learn French on the job. And if you which is true. I mean, that's how I learned how to speak French. I came out of high school. Yeah. I was functionally, a monoglot Anglophone, and within a year, I was, functionally bilingual, and with every passing year, because that's the best way to learn a language.
Totally.
But what gets me is, and I think that far the plan's very, very good. Makes sense. Maybe people will stop screaming about how Montreal is the great shaitan when it comes to the French language, but they're also calling upon customers to sort of be strong, always speak in French, keep speaking in French.
Oh,
and that opens the door to two possibilities. One, you're going to have the usual language agitators going in there being real pains in the butt about speaking French and then screaming like banshees when it doesn't happen to their satisfaction. And two, you're going to see a lot of francophones who, like any other customer, just want to get what they want, get the hell out, or, get whatever good the services is. And if it's taken too long, of course they're going to speak in English. So that could be kind of self-defeating as well. The other, the third sort of 2.A possibility is that situation many of us have found ourselves in. We'll go into a store, we start off in French, we discover the person we're speaking to is an Anglo speaking to us in French, but neither one wants to be the first to switch to English.
It's so true.
Isn't that a
so
song?
True.
Neither one of them wants to be the first to say, "Oh no, that's not to speak French." Jim, I wonder in a case like this, that thing we talked about the other day, this the CAC's sort of announcement that don't worry, this is in transition. This whole new adaptation or the new rules that come into place over Bill 96. And I think what they said was basically, or at least the hint was, it will be a year, and then we'll try to see how things go. I'm wondering if the number of incidents that come up, so in something like this, for example, is going to be the breaking point to them saying, you know what, maybe this wasn't a good idea.
Exactly. And whenever they say it's a period of transition, what they really mean is we got someone in the back room typing up what we're actually going to do, but we just haven't thought about it yet. I mean, this is how these guys function. It's from 2018. It's been embarrassingly clear. But now we're entering, potentially hazardous territory for the future of Quebec, for the future of the people who live here, when you've got this kind of national improvisation league when it comes to French language programs or the approach to how much is enough French, what exactly is the danger to French. I mean, you guys have been doing tremendous work in the past week, just interviewing people, and it's great because rather in the same way as David Eltel found out this morning, you're not really getting straight answers on anything.
No.
Yeah, although that's probably been that way for a while. Can you just want to ask the last question? So I know that the new list of most popular baby names in Quebec came out today. I'm sure the CAC will want to legislate this as well.
Well, you know what? I wasn't even going to. A year ago, I wouldn't have done this. But things have gone so off the wall now in Quebec. Every year, the family allowance people, based on the applications, they've got the names of the little ones, the newborns in Quebec. For the second consecutive year, the two number one names, boys and girls, Emma, which is Germanic, but hey, I'll cut you some slack. But Noah, Noah, as opposed to Noe with a little squiggly thing on top, and pronounced Noe in French. And you go through the list, and yes, a lot of these names have been adopted into French culture, and by that I mean French in France. Even Emma was like the number 3 most popular name in France, I think, about 2 years ago. But you're looking at names like Thomas, Charlie for a girl. Alice is, I still it drifts more to Anglo as far as I'm concerned. Jacob, no question there. Livia, that name's about 2,500 years old, but I wouldn't claim it as a necessarily French name or a Quebec name. Nathan, and I'll cut some slack with Rose, but a lot of the guys' names are definitely non-francophone, and a lot of us were raised, we still have them as our neighbors, people with double-handled names, whether it's Jean-François, Jean-Pierre. We see a lot of politicians who've got that hyphen in their names. But it's it's the kind of thing where is it only a matter of time until some columnist over the Bloc Québécois shows the insidiousness of English of English culture and English language, that we're even naming our own babies after English people.
How low have we sunk?
Dun, dun, dun.
James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Adamant.